All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live. I've got my friend Nervardia with me today, and we're just going to talk a little bit about her experience with an MLM. So if anyone's not familiar with Nervardia, do you want to just tell us a little bit about your channel, what you do on YouTube, everything?
Hi, everyone. Well, my name's Meredith. My real name is... my name is Meredith, and my real name also is Nervardia. I am I am a YouTuber. Called my channel is called Nervardia, and I am doing sciencey stuff, atheism-y stuff, a little bit of Australian content, political content, and just the occasional whatever takes my fancy if I want to put it up. So I'm a bit of an eclectic ADHD based channel. So yeah, that's basically me. That's who and what I am. So yeah, I live in Australia, hence the sexy accent. And yeah.
Cool. So if anyone wants to sub to Nervardia, which I highly recommend, all the links for that are below in the description. I've made sure they're there this time, because in the last live I did, it all got a bit weird, and they weren't there, so they should be there.
Fair enough.
So yeah, so we just dive straight into it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience with this MLM, how you got involved?
Okay, so what happened is when I was living in an area with fairly high unemployment rates. So that's, everywhere has a lot of high unemployment rates at the moment. But at that time, that area, it was quite intense. So those high unemployment rates is obviously a bit of a good place for the MLMs to be able to target, because they're like, we'll get you a job. And it was pretty legit. Like, I actually went and had a job interview, and I didn't know anything about MLMs. And I'm a little bit annoyed that we had an entire section at school about careers and how to write a cover letter and how to write a resume, but nothing on things like MLMs. So anyway, I went to this job interview at this really ritzy hotel with a guy with a nice jacket, and he was telling me about how wonderful it is, and he said it was commission only. And I was like, oh, that's cool, all right, And he explained the structure, and it was all MLM. But again, I had no idea. I had not had any experience at all with MLMs. And this was with a company called Combined Insurance. So luckily it wasn't like Amway or Arbonne, where you actually have to purchase the products to be able to sell it. Like, this wasn't a physical thing to sell. So that was one good thing that I didn't end up drowning in makeup and perfumes. And so when I finally went to this interview, I got the job. Not that I was looking back. There was a 100% guarantee that I was going to get a job. And they took us up for a week-long training week. And it was 2 weeks, 2-week-long training week up in Brisbane. And this is probably the first thing with cults. So as you would know, and most people who would know about cults, first of all, they cut you off, and they sort of give you all of the information. And it was a training week. Like, we learned about laws in Australia when it comes to insurance. We learned all of these things. But we were cut off from the entire world, because it was a solid day's worth of study. Then we'd go home, we'd have to do our homework, and then we'd only talk to people within the group that we knew. And they were very, very, like, they gave us so much stuff, like a really swish hotel, all meals paid for. I think we had to pay for our lunch, but all meals were paid for. And there were nice meals, except for the time a couple of people got food poisoning, which was a really, really appropriate thing now that I think about it. And some of the things that I did was, they would say, what we want you to do. So yeah, looking back at this, knowing what I know about the bite model, they would be like, what we need you to do is when somebody says, how are you? You don't say good, you say terrific. And so we'd all have to say terrific. And someone actually made the joke, oh, what, are we in a part of the cult now? And the lady was like, no, we're all right.
Don't worry about
we
it.
Were. Yeah. Don't worry about it at all. So we did that. This 2-week-long, very intense training course. And then we had to go to, and we were told about having to recruit people. And they were told if you rise up through the ranks, you get people underneath and they give you, what they earn, you earn, and, the whole MLM structure. Is there anybody in the chat that doesn't actually understand the structure of an MLM? Because some people might not.
You could just give maybe the brief overview.
I'll give you a brief overview. So basically in MLM, you have people right at the bottom. So it's a pyramid scheme. You have hundreds of people at the bottom, and then you rise up through the rank. And the more that the more successful the people at the bottom are, the more money you earn. So it's a pyramid scheme. And the statistics are that only 99.8 or 98.9 or something ridiculous amount of people who work in an MLM actually fail. So it's only like a 1% chance of actually succeeding in an MLM. So once I came out of this training course, almost immediately after we had, I can't remember what they called it. I think it was a satellite or something where we went away to Moree, which was about 8 hours drive from where I normally live. And so I went out there for a week selling, and I was pretty successful. And at first, because we had our goals and I was getting these goals. Anyway, once I got to this, to Moree, hung around, and there was a lot of paperwork. There was that isolation from my normal support network, because I was 8 hours drive away. And then I came back, and then I was just every single day, all day, every day, I was driving around. I had to use my own car. I didn't get reimbursed for fuel. They didn't give us a fuel. They didn't give us anything to do with fuel because, you can claim it on tax because you have your business, not ABN. So your own car, your own fuel, your own food. And of course you had to pay for your rent. So you had to make at least, I calculated that I needed to make at least $300 to $400 a week to pay for my, to at least break even. And I was getting $800-900 a week at the beginning. And then, so long days away from your family because, I had to travel 45 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours to get to where I needed to go. Constantly ringing people.
I just want to ask a question. So you were going to this place and you're going there every day, and that's where you were working from. What was the kind of dynamic when you were there and you were working?
So every day you had to call into your post.
By the way, Tam's decided now is the time to run around with a sponge and play. Anyway, so yeah, so you go to this place. How was the workflow? What's it like? What you doing?
Workflow. It was traveling insurance salesman. So okay. Yeah, so it. So of course you'd have to go and talk to people in times that were good for them. So one client could be at 8 o'clock in the morning, while then your next one could be 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The next one could be after work, so it's 6 o'clock. So you could start at 8 in the morning and finish at 6 o'clock at night, or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. And of course, because some of the areas that you're working in were 2 hours drive from where you actually lived, you'd be getting some really, really long days. So when I finally, I was starting to get burnt out. I was also gaining a lot of weight because I was sitting down a lot. So I think I gained probably about 15 kilos while I was working for this company. So yeah, there was also that. I felt, I was starting to pack on the weight. I was getting a lot of at home stuff. Like I had a boyfriend at the time, and I wasn't seeing him. I wasn't seeing my friends because I was so tired. And again, I had to call my superior and talk to my superior every single day. So again, with the MLM and the cult thing, you've got the excessive hours that you had to dedicate towards the cult, the isolation, constantly having things enforced because you had to ring and you had to go, I'm terrific. And
can I also say the terrific thing's interesting? Were you expected to answer that question that way to people on the outside as well, not just on the inside?
I can't remember that because this was in 2010.
Okay.
So I can't, I should probably have said that. But this was in like 2010, but I think maybe we were encouraged to, but we definitely had to say that when we were talking amongst ourselves.
Okay, yeah. So you're reinforcing it to each other as well. It's, The reason I asked about outside is because it's interesting because like with things like Mormons and stuff, there is that like look happy so that everyone thinks everything's great, and then they want in on that, that kind of an attitude. So it's interesting. So carry on. So you're at this place, you're going there every day. It's starting to affect the life you had before, and that's starting to change because of it. You said you're putting weight on as well. What happened from there?
Okay, so I started to burn out. I started to get less and less commissions, starting to lose money because, as I said, I calculated I needed at least $300 to $400 a week to get the money to support myself in this job. Like this is a minimum, and I was starting to get like $100 a week. And I was driving out the back of a town, and I had a Hyundai Excel at the time. And I was driving along. It was a gravel road. There was a council truck that was going really slow in front of me. So he pulled over to allow me to go around. My Hyundai Excel, not known to be particularly safe on gravel roads, hit some gravel. I lost control. I hit an embankment, flipped my car. And it also, as it flipped, it sort of also, raw or something? It sort of flipped this way and went this way as well. I was actually airborne. I was in the air.
Wow.
I don't know if I cannot understand how close I was. Like I came out of that accident alive, unhurt. Meanwhile, every single panel on the on my car was destroyed except for the driver's door. I landed on the passenger's side door. So I was able to get out of it amazingly. I had minor whiplash. Honestly, I was at the time, I was a little bit of I was spiritual. I lived in a New Age area, but it was very much it was interesting because I woke up in midair and I could hear one part of my brain going, why am I in a roller coaster? Another part of my brain going, you're fine. And another part of my brain going, oh, shit. And then I landed and I woke up, and the part of my brain that was like going, oh, you're fine. It's like, it was like said to me, see, I told you you'd be fine. Now get out before the car gets on fire. And so I was like, oh, it was all right. And it was like, I don't believe in angels or whatever. And I know this is part of my brain saying, hey, this is the brain. My brain was just freaking out. But I felt like there were angels at that time, seriously, because it was just like, I cannot understand, like, if I'd been faster or slower or a different angle, I probably would have ended up in a much worse situation. So luck, angels,
Yeah.
movement of the earth. I don't know, but I ended up being very, 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 very lucky in that car accident. So
Wow.
that's how I lost the $10,000. So I lost a lot of money in regards to my car, to just starting to live on a commission-only basis, even though you're working your freaking ass off. I was in targeting areas of the country where there wasn't a lot of money. I crashed my car, which at the time was worth about $1,500. So yeah, but I had to buy a new car, and I bought my mum's car for $6,000. So the loss of my car and having to buy a brand new car was where the majority of that $10,000 came from. And after that car accident, I lost. That was when my sales went to nothing. I still had to pay $15 a week for the paperwork. I still had to. So they gave you like a little kit, and every week that you sold something, they were worth $15. They were worth $15. The kit was worth $15. So I had to pay that out of my own back pocket. And then I think I had to pay them a stipend for some reason, for them to keep my paperwork. Oh, I can't remember. There was something to do with me paying them money every week, just to drive around. And I ended up, after about another 2 or 3 months, I just went, I'm going to have to give it up because I was not earning any money. I was not able to pay my bills. Also at the time, I was on Centrelink. So Centrelink is our social services, our social security. And Centrelink has this weird idea that commission only gets spread out over the entire year. So if I earn if I earn $26 in commission, and rather than them going, okay, that's $26 in commission for that fortnight, that was $1 commission over 26 fortnights. Does that make sense?
Yes, but no.
No, it doesn't make sense for me either. So they said, because I was on commission only rather than getting a wage, they said they averaged out my commission over the entire year. So I was getting like $15 or next to nothing from Centrelink by that time, because my huge commissions that I got like at the beginning of my time with combined insurance meant that by the time I finished combined insurance, I wasn't getting much Social Security from Centrelink at that time as well. So I was getting no money at all. So I had to go and get a job. So that's how I got into disabilities, which is where I'm currently working. So I went into disabilities, and because I had so much debt, I was up to my eyeballs in debt. I didn't actually tell Centrelink that I had this job. And so when Centrelink found out about this job, 7 years later, I had to pay back a significant amount of money, because they were like, that was illegal, but I had no other choice at that time. So I was still paying off debt from being in this MLM 3 years ago. Luckily, I had enough money and I was able to pay it off, because, and also that comes into the whole robo debt thing that I won't even talk about, because it's another story for another day. And if anybody who is Australian knows about the whole robo debt, and everyone knows that it's illegal, but so that's basically my story about my story with working in an MLM.
So I want to just ask a few questions and clarify a few points, because it sounds like the car accident is possible. It wouldn't have happened at all if you weren't like exhausted, worn out, working so much on this thing. I mean, it reminds me of Hassan's story, leaving the Moonies, as he got into a car accident because he was sleep deprived, and that was what enabled him to actually end up leaving. And sorry, go on. You can say.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't have been on that road if it wasn't for that accident. So, like, if it wasn't for that job, I would not have been on that road. So that's the first thing is, like, I'm going to say this. I actually really enjoyed the job. If the job was genuinely paid, if it wasn't commission only, if it was genuinely genuine paid job where I was paid for my time, I would probably still be doing it. I got to meet lots of people. I got to see lots of amazing areas of the world. And I look back on it with a lot of fondness because, you know, just going somewhere and traveling, I got to see new things and go new places and meet some things. And the product itself wasn't actually all that bad. Like, I don't pay that insurance because I don't need to. It's not worth it for me. But that, for me, like, it was a good product. It was a good product, and I had a lot of fun. But the fact of the matter is, it was a cult. It ran like a cult.
I think it's an interesting thing because with certain cults, there is certain arguments that can be made for them saying, well, it's not that bad because this helped me and that helped me. And it's like, again, the issue with the cult is not what you believe or what you're doing. It's how it's run. It's the damage. It's, are you being exploited? Are other people being exploited? You know, obviously most cults, it's not, you know, great. We've got some comments coming in now that I'm starting to see. I think we've got a mod in there anyway for some of them, but yeah, it's interesting because and this actually raises an interesting point which we can talk about, because I see with my experiences as well, there's a lot of people that are so ready to just say, well, it's your fault. It's your fault. You did this yourself. And I know in my experience, it's not as simple as that. It's not as easy as that. And there's so much going on within a cult situation, whether it is a spiritual religious cult, whether it's a political cult, whether it's a toxic relationship, or as in your case, whether it's an MLM. You know, we're looking at controlled environments where people are, the way that they're thinking, the way that they're acting, what they're even doing, as you're saying there, you wouldn't have even been on that road. What you're doing is changed. And especially when you're talking about sleep deprivation, as we are in this instance as well, you're working too much, as it were. You know, you're worn out, you're traveling a lot as well. The risk of that kind of thing happening is increased. So I think what's quite interesting is how many points, as you were going through the story, there's quite a few points there that you do see popping up on the buy model.
There was a definite, some of the parts of the bite model is that constant reinforcement. So as I said, I had to ring my person every time, and like every week we all had to be on a conference call. There were a lot of conferences that I went to. Like I was with them about 6 months, and I can think off the top of my head of at least 2 conferences I went to where they were like sort of showing like everyone, oh, you know, this is, you know, giving out prizes and awards. So there were a lot of awards and you know, talking up people who are really, really good, and you know, you could be like this if you tried really, really hard, and if you don't, you know, if you're not doing it, then you need to be trying harder.
You see, that's fascinating, isn't it? Because of course, an MLM, you don't earn money typically from the product you're selling. You earn it from recruiting people into it, right?
Yeah.
And if they're saying, well, you need to try harder, you need to do this, you need to do that. What's fascinating about that is that, you know, if you're going to be recruiting people, and if there's an effective strategy for doing that kind of thing, and your demographic is an important part of it. Again, I'm sorry for the background noise. That's the cats playing. They stopped for a minute. They've started again. Cam's tail is about 3 times its normal size, and he keeps running around with a bit of one of those scourers, you know, the green scourers. You can spend all the money in the world on a cat toy, but if there's a sponge about, but yeah, so this is quite fascinating actually to hear the experience of this, because obviously I've kind of heard about MLMs from documentaries and things like that, and obviously I know some people who have been involved in them as well, but it's fascinating to hear another experience on the inside of these kinds of things. And so the isolation thing fascinated me, that you were taken away. And again, that rings true of spiritual and religious cults as well. You're taken away and you're kind of programmed, new ways of talking, new ways of thinking. The terrific thing that you said is interesting as well, because it's like within the group, it's almost like you're not allowed to have complaints. If you're, you know, how are you? I'm terrific. Yeah. And even if there's a legitimate complaint, you can't bring it in at that point. Was there, and that's an interesting thing to pull up on here, was there a system for lodging complaints? Were there checks and balances in place?
No, because we were all independent contractors.
Okay, so
from what I can remember, I didn't need to make a complaint. After my car accident, I was told that I could be under what OH&S, like what, but I never followed that up because I was too frazzled from, you know, almost dying in a car accident. So I didn't actually look into that, because it was just like, but I don't think so, because we're all independent contractors. So yeah, some of the things that are coming back to my memory now that I'm talking about it is that during that training fortnight that we had up in Brisbane, there were photos of the company directors on the wall going, these are the people who run the company. You know, you could be like them if you tried really hard. So yeah, there was that kind of like thing as well, sort of like, this is, you know, if you work really hard, and it was always on you. If you were not working or if you didn't do what you needed to do, it was always on you. If you didn't succeed, it was on you. And that's a big thing for MLMs, is that, you know, if you're not doing very well, that's it's your fault, not ours.
Is it? It's never the scheme's problem. It's got to be your problem. And that is also, that rings true of other kinds of cults as well. You know, in my experience, you know, if you're doing, like, actually, I've got a video coming out tomorrow about doubt, actually, and I made reference to MLMs in that briefly. But there's lots of thought stopping and emotion stopping techniques that tend to be applied by cults and unsafe groups in general. And one of the things that you see quite a lot is that it's never the group's fault. It's never the leader's fault. It's never the team or the system or the cult. One man, I was just saying hi, and
hi Mano.
Hi Mano. She's expecting a hi back. But yeah, it's never the group's fault. It's never the leader's fault. It's never the practice or the process or the scheme. It's always, you don't understand it. You need to try harder. You're not awakened enough. You're not enlightened enough, you know. And that's interesting. Sarah just said, it sounds like they kind of treated you like a kid. I'm not sure what that's in reference to, but was that the case for you?
Not really. Like, they treated you like an adult. But there was that sort of attitude of there was that attitude of it's your fault if you don't do does that make sense? There was that attitude of if you don't succeed, it's your fault. What was really interesting is that a couple of years ago, I met a lady who tried getting me into Arbonne. And I thought, and she sat me down, she did the whole spiel, and the whole time I was watching it, I was thinking, this sounds like combined insurance. And I still hadn't known, I still at that time did not know or hadn't heard about what the definition of an MLM is. So I thought to myself, oh yeah, I'll, she said, oh, you don't have to do anything, and you can just go off your own time, and the whole spiel of you can work in your own time. And so I thought, oh, she's like, oh, do you want to try and we've got this thing going on, you're invited to come. And I was like, all right, I can go. And I went there, and it was a freaking cult. Even at that time, I was thinking to myself, this is not normal. This is not a normal thing. And one of the things that the lady said, and she was this beautiful blonde, like bottle blonde woman with the American accent, and the whole "this is terrific" kind of almost. When Oprah, when she comes on and everyone's like screaming and yelling, and that they all get riled up, that kind of energy. And I was just like, this is weird. And there was this question where someone was like, is anybody here like, not doing very well, and they're not feeling better? And this lady's put her hand up, and she basically turned around and said, well, you've got to work harder, and you've got to trust and believe in yourself. And I was like, this is not normal. This is not. And so it runs on that guilt as well. So on that thing, it does actually run on that guilt.
So there's a thing so on the Bite Model site, the Freedom of Mind site, where the Bite Model is, if you're on that site and you scroll down and you look at the text underneath, there's a link to a PDF, which I've got in the description of my new video. That mention it again. It's going out tomorrow if anyone's around. There's a link to that PDF, and on the PDF it kind of expands the Bite Model a little bit. And there's one point on there which looks at, I believe, like how, in terms of doubt, people will rationalize their experience, and it won't be, again, like, it's never the group. It's always going to be where it must be this thing that I'm not doing right, or it must be that thing. You're trying to explain it because all your feedback is saying it's not the scheme, it's not the group, it's not the leader, whatever. So it must be me. And then when you're told that by someone on a stage that's saying, well, no, you should work harder, it's like, okay, then it must be that. And I think that's a really interesting thing, because in particular in these kinds of groups, there's not, can you not, Ned? Can you just go away, please? Thank you. Sitting under this table, just like scratching up where the laptop is. It's not helpful. Now he's going to meow for us. He's going to put on a little concert. But yeah, so with these kind of groups, the environment is predisposed towards you accepting what's being said as fact, true. You put all the glitz and glamour on, and someone goes up on the stage and they start saying things. All of your experience is saying, this person is the person of authority, listen to me, right? That's kind of what you're getting from that. So the ability to sit down and think critically when you're in a situation like that, unless you're aware of it going in, or unless you know what the red flags are, and it's a different experience if you know what the red flags are. You were fortunate enough, I think, at that point to have had a previous experience. So you're hang on, this sounds like that other thing that was, wasn't great. So you're able to check in with that experience. But someone who doesn't have that kind of an experience, they don't know what they're getting into. As I say, if the whole environment is predisposed towards accepting this stuff, then that feedback, that space between you and the environment to test the reality of what's being said is kind of it's not there really, and it makes it harder. So one thing I wanted to ask you was that when you first got involved with the first group, was it Combined Insurance? You said that was what it was called.
Yeah, Combined Insurance. Yeah.
Was it clear to you what you were getting into? Was it made clear initially?
It was made clear that it was commission only. It was made clear that you would be you were going to work a long period of time, it wasn't made clear the risk I was getting into. It wasn't made clear that, it was obviously, it wasn't like, oh, we're an MLM. So the risk itself was not overly, the risk itself wasn't actually explained to me, but we were told it was commission only. And at the time, I thought to myself, it was, shouldn't have, we shouldn't be given, what's it called? We shouldn't be given commission only, or at least, if you're going to expect your people to support your company and work these long hours, you should at least give them a $200 or $300 stipend per week, because at least to cover their costs. I mean, that was my thought process. I mean, crazy, stupid me, goddamn socialist. I was just, I remember thinking to myself, if you're going to work that hard, then it's going to, you'd expect them to sort of at least give you some sort of financial fallback if you don't have any, if you're on commission only. So that was that. As I said, I was really, really lucky it wasn't something like Amway or Arbonne, where I actually had to sell something physical. I just was selling insurance. Because if I was selling something physical, that meant that I would have had to buy something physical, and then that I would have lost even more money on it. So I'm at least grateful for that. Yeah.
I mean, hang on, right? Are they going to stop, or are they going to carry on?
They're going to carry on
to like where this whole setup is, and I'm just terrified they're going to knock it over. But we have a question in the chat. Whether, I'm going to put it on the screen, I'll read it out. Whether day or weekend long training sessions prior to you becoming part of the team?
Yes, there was. There was a 2-week long. Training session, mostly about how to fill out the forms that they give you, what the products were, and the laws behind the product, the Australian insurance laws. Like, for example, in Australia, it is illegal for us to go up to people and knock on the door. Like, we're not allowed to do that. Thankfully, we don't get any door-to-door salesmen anymore because of that law. So just in case you're an Australian, you're wondering why you never get those things at like door-to-door salesmen, that's why. The other, but then there was a lot of that indoctrination. As I said, we'd have that, every morning we would have that, we'd all group together. And I think we also did after lunch, we'd group together and we'd sort of do that sort of, I'm terrific and this is amazing attitude that MLMs have the tendency to do. And Granny also asks, inspirational lessons. Yes, we had a lot of inspirational ones as well. So, like there were these amazing...
I've muted my mic for a second, by the way, because Tam's in the litter box and it's just it's obnoxiously loud. So I'm going to mute it. But if there's any questions coming up for the minute, I'm going to pop them on the screen so you can answer.
Okay. So Sarah, she goes, did you have to pay for the training? No, we got paid for the training. That was the only time where we actually got paid for our time, is that we had $500 for that week, for 2 weeks of training. So... And looking back on that, that was actually pretty crappy for Australian money.
Fascinating, isn't it? That you would get paid to be trained by them. Is that common? Is that normal? I haven't heard of that kind of thing.
I don't think so, actually. I don't think so.
Like a kind of a law, doesn't it? We'll pay you to be trained. Come here, and then you'll find out what you're in for.
Yeah.
So there was a recruiting aspect to this, was there?
Yeah, there was very much. As I said, I lived in an area with a very high unemployment rate.
Okay.
So those things are just targeted, like, you know, people who are unemployed or underemployed are just prime targets for MLMs. So I'm just wondering, I did think I saw a while back someone asking what is an MLM, and that's a pyramid scheme. So basically you've got thousands of people right at the bottom earning all of the money for the 2 or 3 people at the top. So,
and everyone that you recruit, you make money out of what they earn typically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like Hanako there said that Telvista pays for training. Then I wonder if they're paying you to be trained, or whether it's like paid training as part of an ongoing payment for being employed. What's curious to me about this one is that you're being paid on commission, so they're not paying you, but they're only paying you for the training, and that's what struck me as odd with that between. I don't know if Telvista. I don't believe that they're paying on. I don't believe many telemarketing places pay on commission, do they? But yeah,
I think maybe 1 or 2. Maybe. I'm not sure. I've never been a telemarketer, thank God. It's had to be even worse than working for a traveling insurance salesperson. At least with traveling insurance, you can go somewhere.
I'm trying to remember what I was just saying then as well. I don't know what my question was going to be. So I got distracted by the chat. This is the issue with the chat. It's really great to have the interaction, but then your eyes go and then your brain goes.
Yeah, your brain goes. I love you too, X-Cult baby.
Thanks for being here, X-Cult baby. I got to say I love you back now. Otherwise, it's weird, isn't it, that everyone said it? Just know that I'm only saying it because everyone else has. So what was I going to ask you? I can't remember now. Regarding the recruiting aspect, so was that made clear to you when you jumped in initially, that you would be paid for recruitment and not for selling insurance?
Well, I was paid for selling insurance, but they said that you can, if you recruit somebody, you can get like an extra $100 per person.
I phrased the question badly. In most MLMs, you are also paid for the thing that you're supposed to be paid for. It's just that the real money maker is not that. It's the recruitment, and that you get money from recruiting other people. Is that the case?
I think it was the other way around. I think they were more like, oh, as an added bonus, if you recruit somebody else, you get $100. Yeah. The big money was the large insurance. Like I think the most I got paid for one sale was like $1,000. So you can get massive amounts of money if you can sell that 1,000, like a large insurance. So yeah.
So that's fascinating, because obviously when you tend to hear of MLMs, it's always like, this is the bit and then that's the big bit. But this is always an issue as well when we're talking about bite model, when we're talking about things like that, is that people are like, well, it doesn't fit this criteria, so it must not be X, Y, or Z. But actually, it's like, well, the issue with the bite model in particular is that it doesn't have to fit every criteria. It just needs to fit enough of them to a severe enough degree that you can call it that. It's troubling enough. It's really a scale of how unsafe is this thing, at least as I understand it anyway. Hanako said with Telvista, they do pay you afterwards, and then there's commissions on top of that. But it's not a good job.
So that's for Telvista, by the way, isn't it? That's for
Telvista, not for
combined insurance.
So Mark has said, was the crash the only thing that made you come out of the MLM?
No, it was finances. That was the main thing. I was starting to go on a bit of a downward trajectory before I had my car accident, but it was like after my car accident, it just came off a cliff. Like, I remember, so I was living in the north coast of New South Wales at the time, and we had so what they did is they did cycles of areas that you sell in. So I was living in this particular area. I didn't live in this town, but I lived in this town that was near Byron Bay, just to give most people an idea of where it is. So Byron Bay is like a tourist trap in that local area. So I was actually down in Coffs Harbour, or just north of Coffs Harbour, which is about a 2-hour drive away or something, if I remember correctly. Remember, this is about 10 years ago, so I could be a little bit off on the details. So that meant that I was driving about 2 hours to and from, so at least 4 hours a day. And I had done that all week. And I had sold $100 worth of insurance in commission for 1 week. And I think about 4 weeks later, I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore, because that week alone probably would have cost me $600 just purely on, like, I was spending $150, $200 a week in fuel. So that's what I was saying. Maybe about $100 a week in fuel to get around, not including the wear and tear on my car, not including the food that I had to buy when I was down there. I was not spending the money, the time that I was spending in that thing. I probably should have been, if it was a paid job where they paid all of your expenses, I probably would have been earning, $1,500 a week. Instead, I was earning $100 a week, and I went, I can't do this. I can't financially support myself anymore, because I need to pay my rent. And
what's an interesting point as well is that if the intention is to sell insurance, I would have expected that you would go somewhere where people can afford to buy insurance that's not like, I don't know what combined insurance is specialized in, and maybe you can clarify that for me in a sec. But I feel like if you're buying insurance, then, and it's not like your regular kind of insurance that you might just already have on your house or whatever, or whatever it is.
It was sickness and injury disability insurance. So if you got sick or injured, it was to make up the fact that you get money back when you're sick and injured, and you just send off a something to you, send off your doctor, and the doctor fills out the back this insurance claim, you send it off, and and you get money back. And and it was good because there was no waiting period, there was no as I said, the product itself was good. And it was not complicated. It was just like, I got sick for a week, I'm going to send off this piece of paper and get the money back. And you had a set amount of money that you could own. So you could earn. So rather than, like, if you were to do it through your bank, for example, you automatically get sickness insurance on your house or something. Like if you take out a loan on your house, then you can get the sickness insurance, but there's so much, it's really, really complicated to get that insurance. Most people don't even bother. Meanwhile, with combined insurance, it's like, you pay for $1,500 a month, you get $1,500 a month. I
wonder, and we're kind of getting towards time now, and there's a bunch of questions. I want to kind of fire through them, but I do wonder, like, I hearing that as someone who is not very trusting of these kinds of things, I wonder if that is actually, when you get into it, I don't know if you're aware of any cases where people have actually done it and they've actually got that money and everything's been fine and it's all worked out great. I wonder if it is what it says on the tin,
Well, the insurance was what was on the tin. It was, there was one person who got like over 10 grand. Wow. They were on, they had an insurance policy that covered them for heart attacks. They had a massive heart attack. And when they were like, oh, we can't really talk to you. I mean, he's just had a heart attack. And I was like, no, you want to talk to me. And I was like, you're going to get at least 10 grand out of this. And they're like, come on over. And I got a sale out of that one. It was like, $30 a month for them. But they, they were like, oh my God. So like, as I was saying, the product itself was a good product. And I will still say that to today. But being the person who sold the product,
not being taken care of, and then you've got all the other aspects, bite model issues and things. So let's just kind of run through these questions so that we don't run out of time and that everyone has their questions answered. So we've got a question from Granny that says, if Australia has an insurance commission, are they aware of this insurance scam?
It's not an insurance scam, because I think the insurance, like, they'd be looking at things on the side of people who have the insurance not getting the money paid.
Yeah.
It's the person doing the selling that's being screwed around, not the people.
What you were saying in the previous answer to my last question sort of covers that one, I suppose. The insurance itself seems fine. It's just the way that the actual companies run that's the issue. So Catherine asked, did you lose friends while in the MLM? What were you told? And I'll kind of just expand that more generally for my own curiosity as well. How were you expected or encouraged to deal with people that like questioned it, or like were, oh, that sounds like this or that? What and if that did happen, how did you deal with that?
Well, okay, no, I didn't lose any friends while in the MLM. I think I pissed off my mum a bit, but I don't know. I can't remember if there were any things like any shunning style attitudes towards the towards being in said MLM. So there was. I think it was more they gave us the thought stopping techniques. That was probably the main thing that they did was the thought stopping techniques.
And did you have anyone at any point kind of challenge you on it or ask a lot of questions about it that made you feel defensive or anything?
Not that I can remember.
No, fair enough. I suppose without that experience, it would be kind of hard to say how you would have dealt with it at the time.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see, but we don't have a time machine, so let's move forward. More questions. Granny has said, how today does having been conned into this scheme affect your self-confidence and your trust of others? That's an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. I don't think it's really affected my self-confidence. It wasn't actually, I did feel a bit dumb when I found out about, when I realized it was a bit of a scam. Like at the time and for ages afterwards, I was like, oh, I could have done better. And I did have that sort of shame kind of thing. But after watching Rachel Oates's video on MLMs, when she said that statistic of something like 98 or 99 or something, huge number of people fail and lose money in an MLM, I was like, okay, I don't feel so bad now. And I don't blame myself for falling into an MLM because, I needed a job at the time. And also MLMs aren't back at that time because, as I said, this was 2010. MLMs didn't have as much awareness as it does today. So,
do you know if it's still going?
Pardon?
Do you know if it's still going, or
probably is? It was an old company when I started, so it probably still is going.
And another question from Granny there. I want to say hi, Lusky, as well. You have to watch back, mate, and then you can see it all if you're just joining us. So yeah, Granny said, how are you wiser today because of this?
Well, I can pick an MLM. That's probably the most important thing for me to be able to say. And also if I see someone or hear someone going, oh, this is my job, and they explain what it is, I'm like, oh, that sounds a bit like an MLM. And I'll be able to say this is this is not okay. So I would say I'm actually kind of grateful for that. I'm grateful for knowing that. So yeah.
Cool. So we're kind of getting to time now. If there's any more questions, drop them in, but we'll probably just pick a few of the best ones and do it. I also get a super chat in from Unholy Sarah that says Mero is a badass.
Ah,
there you go. Thanks for that, Sarah, as well.
Sarah is freaky.
I don't know if anyone's seen, I'd imagine that you have Nightbot is now functional in the chat as well, which is really cool. It's been sending out your link.
Hang on, buzzing me.
I'll speak to you guys then while Meredith's going over there. Yes, so if anyone would like to support either of us on Patreon, the links are in the chat and in the description. If you haven't followed Nervardia on Twitter, then the link should also be there as well for that. And please don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to let...
Sorry about that. Somebody was delivering a parcel. Hooray!
I was just telling everybody that your links are in the chat and in the description as well. And for anyone watching now that didn't catch it at the beginning, do you want to just tell everyone a little bit about your channel and what you're doing on YouTube?
My name's Meredith. My channel's name is Nervardia. I am doing everything basically, but basically it is science and atheism and a little bit of Lucius. Here he is. Hey, he's been crawling around my jacket all morning. He's some Lucius stuff as well, if I feel like it. Just talking about some politics, Australian politics as well, kind of giving an Australian flavour to the atheist movement. So, yeah.
Cool. So the link to Nervardia, the link to your channel, Meredith, is in the description, and it has also been popping up in the chat, thanks to our trusty friend Nightbot, who for some reason has just timed out Granny in the chat. I don't know why. Sorry about that. I'll fix that one for next time, maybe. I don't know if it's just all the little emoji things that you sent. They didn't like it. I'm not sure. Oh, there you go. It says stop spamming emotes warning. I don't know why it's got these privileges. I didn't give them. It's the AI is taking over, and we all need to to brace for the end. So Lusky said, nice, going to check it out. Any videos on cults? Do you have any videos on cults, Meredith?
No, I don't. Not quite yet. There is an aim to maybe start looking at universal medicine, which you did a little bit on, because that's just a fascinating cult. But I've also discovered another fairly unknown cult, so I might actually, have a chat to have a look into that.
Be careful, they don't like it.
Oh yeah, are you being targeted by universal medicine now? Are you?
No, I don't believe so. Thankfully, and I don't want to invite it.
No.
But I think, with this kind of thing, I mean, it's not. I know that a lot of these people do tend to see it as persecution and so on and so forth, which has various effects on what they think about what they're doing. But really, I'm not interested in going after anyone. I'm interested in what the facts are. And if you're doing something that fits the bite model, you're doing something that fits the bite model. And if it's out there in the public domain, people are going to talk about it. If you don't want to be talked about like a cult, don't be a cult.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fairly...
And as much as I think that's the thing, people are gonna do what people are gonna do, and part of that is people calling them out for it. And if people are going to get hurt, people are going to get taken advantage of, as we've been talking about here. I've talked a lot about on my channel. Then I think that people need to be aware of that so that they can steer clear if need be. Really, it's about educating yourself, isn't it? It's about being aware of how these things work. Like you say, now that you're aware of it, you can spot one a mile off, right? And yeah, not to get any closer. Mark says, thank you both for a very interesting insight into MLMs.
Yeah, they are very interesting. I might actually, now that we've had this conversation, I might actually do a video on my experiences with this MLM and actually talk about and break it down using the bite model. So actually, I will probably do that in the next few weeks. I've got another video that have yet to even script, and I'm generally release on the weekend. So it's Wednesday now, so I probably should do that. But maybe in the next couple of weeks, I'll do a video on how MLMs, this particular MLM functioned in the bite model. So yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you. I will do that.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Now that I've done it, I actually have to do that.
It's out there now, and you've got to stick to it. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for joining me. Thanks for telling your story.
Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And again, your channel is actually, I think Nightbot's just chucked it up in the chat there as well. So let me just check over the chat, see if I've missed anything, and if I haven't, then we can end things there. I think we're good. You guys are C. Ex-Cult Baby said, you guys are C.
Awesome.
What is C?
I have no idea.
Okay, correcting. So great. Thank you. Thank you. You're all so great. Right. So, and also very pretty.
Yeah.
You spoil us.
Oh, hang on. Saz S says she sounds like she's trying hard to blame everything on the MLM, but she caused her own. This is not a credible.
Early,
that was way back when I was talking about my car accident. I will admit that I was in the car accident. I was the one that did the wrong thing. But so yeah, I'm taking personal responsibility for that. However, there were the long hours. It was the fact that I was in a car that was not good for gravel roads, and I hit the gravel on this road. So I'm not blaming the MLM. I'm just saying that was a contributing factor. I was the one that caused the accident. So I'm going to, but there was that, and I would not have actually been in that car accident if it wasn't for the fact that I was working for it. But at the same time, you could say that for any car accident that you get on the way to work. So
I think when I saw that earlier, that was when I kind of mentioned how there's so much to these kinds of situations. There's so many different factors as to why you would have even been working there, why you became convinced it was the answer, for example. And in this instance, there's obviously the financial element, and the way that it was positioned initially, and my experience with the group I ended up involved with. Again, I take responsibility that I was naive. I didn't know what I was doing. I made mistakes, and I should have done more research. I should have cross-referenced the claims that were being made, and I should have taken it all as read, But there's also the other side there, which you have to consider, that if these things are being done deceitfully, if these things are being done with the intention to, and I don't know if this is the case with the group I was involved in, but with the intention to exploit people, then there are significant issues which play into why you were even there at all.
Yeah.
You can say, well, it could have happened with any job, and maybe it could have, but does any job kind of mislead you into it? Does any job exploit you, sleep deprive you, to make you travel X, Y, and Z? There's a lot of stuff with it, and it's not to say that there's a clear answer. And often with these things, it's not black and white. There's so many nuances to issues like this, and it does require quite a lot from people looking at them, in terms of entertaining nuance, in terms of considering the scale that you're looking at with the damage being done and things like that. So on that note, I think we're about to wrap up here. People are saying thank you and kind of leaving. So if there's anything else you want to say, you go ahead and say. No. Had any comments for anyone who?
Well, I want to say thank you very much to everybody who's joined in. I appreciate you guys coming in And also make sure that every single time, like if you ever come across something that says it's commission only, for the love of God, look into it. Do not ever, 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 ever accept a job that's commission only, unless, of course, like they give you a reason to think otherwise. So do not enter a commission only job without doing your research. That's my biggest thing that I've learned from this. So yeah.
Well,
All right.
again for joining, and everyone in the chat, everyone watching, please subscribe to Nervardia. She's doing great stuff, and I will
Do the same to Andy as well.
Do you want to like say just a final word? When me and Sarah ours, we did Stay Unholy, and I'll see you in the next one, which is our kind of sign offs.
Okay, well, don't give yourself the raw prawn.
There we go. Don't give yourself the raw prawn, and I'll see you in the next one.
Bye.